Hello and welcome to our second Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier Fight Week preview. My name is Martin Domin, joined again by Donagh Corby. It is Friday, which means last night was the official press conference, late in the night UK time. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, about if we learned anything from it, if we saw what we expected to see, and then look ahead to the weigh-in this evening. Two weigh-ins, of course, but the main one early evening UK time. Donagh, it was the first press conference we saw from Conor McGregor, which wasn't him being nice to his opponent since Khabib in 2018. Was it as you expected?
To be honest with you, no. I mean, it really does seem like he doesn't actually hate Dustin Poirier that much. It seems like he's put himself in this mindset that it did seem a little bit forced to me. And look, he had some funny lines as he always does, but I thought that Poirier handled it as well as anyone could expect him to, and it was ultimately just disappointing a little bit from McGregor. And I don't think when we look back on the great highlight packages of great McGregor press conference moments, we're going to see any from UFC 264.
I suspect you're right, and you mentioned it felt forced, and really from the first, I mean, he was late, of course, half an hour or so, but as soon as he walked on, he saw the bottles of hot sauce. I'm not really sure why they were there, but he was agitating from the first minute, getting rid of them, then sort of trying to get at Poirier. But listen, fighters never actually ever get to each other in a press conference, and why would they? And then from then on, he tried his best, but I think for me, when if I think back to the Mayweather press conference, I think it was Toronto when he got the crowd singing and chanting about the Mayweathers. And then he sort of tried to do the same thing last night with Poirier about his wife, which, has been a theme this week, and it seems again forced and just a bit unnecessary. But he really struggled to get the crowd going. And then Poirier just said, "You used to be so much better." And I just thought, you know what, that's absolutely perfect that you did. Like, there were these comparisons with Muhammad Ali and the trash talking and everything else. Now, they might have been, excessive, but he was so much better than he was last night. And I think if we needed any evidence that Poirier is being honest when he says he no longer gets under his skin, then we saw that.
Yeah, well, look, at the end of the day, like, it's a whole lot easier to deal with someone like Conor McGregor when you've knocked them out before. Like it's not as irritating. That element of I suppose it'd be like a concern that like he does tend to get these predictions right. It's kind of not really there anymore. He hasn't. He stopped Cerrone, I suppose, in 2020, but otherwise he lost pretty convincingly to Khabib, lost pretty convincingly to Dustin, lost pretty convincingly to Floyd Mayweather. And it's been a while since that really great performance against Eddie Alvarez. So I can't imagine him getting under too many top fighter skins. Perhaps maybe if he fought Oliveira, because I know that Brazilian fighters tend to get very emotionally invested in the bouts, and perhaps that would play a factor as well. But it would just be, I think at the moment, it would almost be weirder if Poirier was getting wound up by the sort of things Conor was saying.
You're right, and you mentioned the Alvarez fight, and McGregor referenced that last night, and said, first of all, that he believes it's the greatest ever performance in the UFC. It's certainly up there, but he said that he expects to deliver something better than that this weekend, and I'm sure he said similar to the 6 months ago. To be fair, but it feels. I'm really struggling to buy into him this time. I don't know about you. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just being cynical. But I'm struggling to really appreciate or accept much of what he's saying. And listen, the proof will be in the pudding. But I'm not convinced.
Yeah, look, it's a tough sell. Like I say, he just got knocked out by this guy like 6 months ago. It isn't like the Diaz fight where there's a whole load of excuses. Like, he didn't jump up 2 weight classes on a couple of weeks' notice. He didn't do anything like that. He fought someone who, at the level he believes himself to be at, he should be beating. Not comfortably, but he definitely should be beating someone like Dustin Poirier if he believes that he's the best fighter in the UFC. Lost very convincingly, was knocked out. It was an embarrassing loss, and he's coming back off it, and he's saying, oh, well, I'm going to perform better than I did against Alvarez right now. And look, perhaps he will. And he certainly seems irritable. He certainly seems, like he's done something to get himself in, that same mindset that he was in before he was, the world's richest athlete or anything like that. So maybe he's got us all fooled, and he's going to come out on Saturday and be, unbelievable. And look, skill for skill, he probably can be against someone with the tools that Dustin Poirier offers. But we're going to have to wait and see on Saturday night or Sunday morning for us.
For sure, and it's always easy after the fact. But I suppose if you do look at it, the locking himself away, he talked about being in Dubai on his own and then bringing only the coaches he needed, no boxing coach, no family this time. John Kavanagh has only just finally spoken for the first time in months and gave an interview to ESPN, but gave very little, if anything, away. I've always thought, and listen, I don't know the camp particularly well, but I've always thought that people like John Kavanagh wouldn't necessarily still be involved if they felt that Conor wasn't, maybe not 100% as he used to be, but at least focused enough to still want this. And if Conor says something, I can take that with a pinch of salt. But if people like John Kavanagh say something, I tend to believe them a bit more. So maybe you're right, and maybe they're right, and they're going to shock us all. And listen, I'd love it from a fan's point of view. Of course I would.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, look, Kavanagh and a lot of other coaches, particularly from SBG, there's another coach there called Dave Roach, who's sort of running the gym right now while John is in California with Conor. And these guys are more than capable of having those really tough discussions with fighters. I was at a local show recently, and I saw those coaches having that discussion with a fighter after he had won a decision, but he clearly had an issue with his gas tank, and this is a young guy, and they were discussing, maybe is MMA going to be for him? He was an amateur, he was considering going pro. And I think that Kavanagh and his team are more than capable of telling McGregor, if he's not still at that level, that he should give it up. I know that he has said before, I believe it was after the Khabib fight, that he probably wouldn't come back to corner Conor if he felt that there wasn't, intriguing matchups for him. And obviously, like you say, they believe, Owen Roddy believes, John Kavanagh believes, that there is something in Conor this time. Obviously, like I say, his training partners, Peter Queally, this is someone who has a Bellator lightweight title shot coming up. They wouldn't all go to California, lock themselves away for 8 weeks just for a paycheck. These are people who are doing pretty okay for themselves regardless. So I would imagine that if Conor was really struggling, that they would know about it and they would tell him, and we wouldn't be seeing him getting in the cage at any stage.
Yeah. So there's one more formality to get through until we do get to the cage tomorrow night. 5 p.m. our time. They've got an hour, I guess, to step on the scales, and then midnight our time they'll sort of do so again in front of, you would imagine, thousands of fans in the ceremonial weigh-ins. I'm sure we don't expect any drama, but the one thing McGregor has said is that he will come in at 156 this time instead of 155 last time. And I mean, listen, to me, as someone who's never had to cut down particularly far, it makes sense, right? I mean, I know McGregor's always gone on about making championship weight as if that's something to attain and something to achieve, but why take an extra pound off when you don't need to? Whether it has any difference or not, I don't know, but it makes sense to me not to sort of stress your body any more than you need to.
Yeah, look, Martin, evidently, just from looking at me, you can tell I've never done a weight cut in my life, but it probably would benefit him to, like he says, give us as few concessions as possible, show up the heaviest weight that he can be, like at the press conference. Don't allow Dustin to be, promoting things, and just make everything that one little bit more difficult. It's a pretty standard, sporting, I don't know if the word is trick, but, you don't give anyone even one little inch. I know that in football, teams will make sure the away dressing room isn't in great nick before the teams come in and stuff. And so if Conor can control any aspects like that, then he probably should. And I would imagine that, coming in at the heaviest possible weight and then replenishing and entering the cage at the heaviest weight will probably benefit him going into this one.
And as he's mentioned several times, he doesn't have the long weight that he had in Abu Dhabi. It's back to...
Well, that is an actually interesting factor, because I do recall, I believe we said it yesterday, that the difference between the fight being at featherweight and lightweight is an interesting one. So it does appear, and they were completely different fights. And I don't know, like, obviously they changed a lot over a 6 or 7 year period, but the difference was pretty startling. Conor landed probably bigger punches in January than he did in 2014. And Poirier was able to stay up. He didn't go down. He didn't look particularly badly phased at any point to where it looked like he might be in danger of it being stopped. And look, maybe that is an issue. Conor seems to be pretty fixated on it, and he's one of these guys who has all of the facilities in place to where the weight cut should be not easy, but as easy as it can be, because he has so many, he has the best nutritionists, he has all of this stuff. So perhaps it is going to be a tough cut for Dustin, and perhaps that plays a factor, because that extra, Conor's right, they did have an extra day to replenish, and of course that benefited Conor more, but whoever has the tougher cut would benefit more from that little advantage.
For sure. We will see what happens with that, as I said, later on today, and then if there are any more attempted kicks, any more fireworks at the ceremonial weigh-ins.
What a great thing! I love the attempted kick. Yeah, like he actually intends on hurting Dustin Poirier with that and having the fight cancelled.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. And then we'll be back tomorrow morning to look back on that and to make some final predictions, some final calls ahead of the trilogy fight. So I do hope you can join us then. And until then, take care.